Buongiorno a tutti, benvenuti. È un'occasione per fare una riflessione importante, secondo me, su queste nuove vie della creatività. Facevo una riflessione, se pensate, tornando da Artissima, si riporta l'impressione di un momento di forte presenza della pittura, che è sempre malata, ma non muore mai. E dunque si ripete questa tecnica secolare, ma a fianco si aprono rivoli, sentieri e percorsi di pratica, di creatività imprevisti e tutti da scoprire. Su questa via la Fondazione per l'Arte CRT ha, per il terzo anno, imboccato questo tentativo di scoprire, coltivare, seguire, promuovere l'intreccio fra la creatività tradizionale e artistica e la creatività che nasce dai nuovi saperi tecnologici ed altri. Questa poi oggi qui è il luogo più adatto, perché l'identità di OGR è proprio con le due sue maniche quella di provare a scoprire quale sarebbe l'esito di questo intreccio. E dunque sono molto contento di ascoltare quelle che saranno le osservazioni dei relatori. Vi ringrazio ancora, lascio la parola a Luigi Fassi e a Cerutti, scusa, il nuovo segretario della Fondazione per l'Arte Contemporanea e Moderna di CRT, e dunque a te la parola. Grazie.
Grazie Fulvio, buongiorno a tutti, io sarò molto rapido, prima di lasciare poi la parola a Luigi Cerutti e poi a Ilaria Bonacossa, che ringrazio perché ha voluto ricongiungersi con Artissima, con Torino, per prendere in mano questo convegno che oggi inizia e che è particolarmente importante perché faccio una piccola ricapitolazione. Nel 2021 nasce questo progetto di Beyond Production con l'intenzione da parte di Artissima, supportata e in cooperazione con la Fondazione per l'Arte Moderna e Contemporanea CRT e le OGR, dove siamo di esplorare come le nuove tecnologie stessero in quel momento prendendo un certo protagonismo all'interno delle pratiche degli artisti. Questo è stato un po' l'inizio di questo percorso, non una, come dire, velleità, ma una volontà di partire da quanto gli artisti stavano in quel momento facendo, esplorando ad esempio il mondo degli NFT. Quindi questo è da rimarcare perché, come dire, è un po' nello spirito tanto di Artissima quanto di questa istituzione di porsi al servizio degli artisti e di fare dei ragionamenti che non anticipino ma seguano quelli degli artisti. Questo è un po' lo spirito con cui vogliamo continuare a operare. E quindi in quel momento gli NFT avevano suscitato tanto interesse, hanno continuato a farlo, poi con le loro evoluzioni, e quindi Artissima con Beyond Production, con la Fondazione CRT e con le OGR si era costruito quel percorso che poi ha avuto una seconda tappa, il 2022, dove si è proseguito esplorando il metaverso, quindi cercando di allargare a cerchi concentrici questa attenzione sulle nuove tecnologie digitali e il fare artistico. In questo terzo volume ecco un'evoluzione ulteriore, a mio avviso particolarmente affascinante, perché con questo Beyond Production Symposium ci si ritrova invece a fare un ragionamento, come dire, a 2 anni di distanza dall'inizio, un terzo volume che prova a ragionare in termini riflessivi, sia retrospettivi ma anche, auspichiamo, anticipatori di quanto potrà accadere in questo sommovimento tra arte e tecnologie digitali, e lo si fa con tanti esperti che sono qui convenuti, che sono qui in sala, che ringrazio tutti. Poi su questo ovviamente vi illustrerà tutti i dettagli Ilaria, e prendeteci un po' di respiro, un po' di calma, no? In questi giorni anche così frenetici, in cui però possiamo appunto qui convenire a mente più lucida, più tranquilla rispetto alla frenesia, insomma, che tanto ci piace, che invece attraversa la città e i corridoi di Artissima all'Oval. Possiamo provare ad osservare le pratiche degli artisti da questa prospettiva più riflessiva, più meditativa, cercando di tenere insieme 3 elementi di riflessione. Evidentemente le pratiche degli artisti, quindi gli artisti stessi e chi con loro lavora, quindi questo, ripeto, deve essere sempre il punto di partenza, con molta umiltà, non pensare di sostituirsi agli artisti o di dettare loro la linea o di anticipare cosa loro vogliano o faranno, ma appunto osservare, mettersi a disposizione e da lì partire. Quindi le pratiche del fare artistico saranno, come dire, uno dei 3 elementi che verranno esplorati in questo panel, in questo simposio. Quello dei tecnici invece, delle tecnologie che abbiamo in parte citato e che quindi possono raccontarci la loro versione dei fatti, il loro impegno in sinergia con gli artisti a esplorare questo mondo. E terzo elemento che, devo dire, a me sta molto a cuore è quello di chi invece si occupa degli aspetti etici e anche legali, quindi con una matrice che va dalla filosofia alla giurisprudenza e che cerca un po' di seguire come cornice da partire da questi elementi, filosofia, giurisprudenza, ricadute sul diritto, su tutto quello che concerne questi elementi, come tutto questo sta accompagnando, magari più dietro le quinte, l'evoluzione del rapporto tra arte e tecnologia, ma che può darci, questo terzo elemento, anche un senso appunto del perché, delle ragioni, di dove sta andando questa fusione tra arte e tecnologia e dove questo sta impattando, come sta impattando sulle pratiche degli artisti, ma direi soprattutto anche su di noi come società civile. Cosa possiamo aspettarci e come dobbiamo inquadrare da questo punto di vista etico-legale questa evoluzione. Vorrei sottolineare poi che, e con questo concludo, abbiamo ieri assegnato l'OGR Award, che quest'anno, in virtù, no, è una sorta di continuo cerchi concentrici. Come vedete è stato un percorso fatto da Artissima, che è arrivato al 3° anno, l'abbiamo detto, c'è questa sinergia continua con la Fondazione per l'Arte Moderna e Contemporanea Cerutti, con l'EGR, Artissima, e questo ha creato varie convergenze, non da ultimo l'OGR Award, che quest'anno ad Artissima, l'abbiamo assegnato ieri, dicevo, ha avuto una evoluzione. È un premio che ha sempre cercato di guardare dalle sue origini un po' a delle modalità innovative di fare arte. Quest'anno innanzitutto è stato assegnato a 2 artisti, quindi con una disponibilità dalla Fondazione, di generosità, di interesse proprio a, come dire, moltiplicare gli sforzi, a raddoppiarli. E mi preme sottolineare quello che era un po' il brief che abbiamo dato a una giuria molto importante internazionale, che è appunto accompagnata dalla guida sapiente di Samuele Piazza, il curatore dell'OGR, è convenuta a Torino. Parliamo appunto delle direzioni del Museo di Arte Contemporanea di Lussemburgo, il MUDAM, e della direttrice del programmi espositivi e di ricerca del MACBA di Barcellona. Ricordavamo prima con Fulvio e Gianaria, facevamo un po' l'elenco dei direttori di musei che ci sono in questi giorni ad Artissima. Ci abbiamo messo un po' e non so, siamo tra una ventina almeno che vanno da diversi continenti, e solo i direttori, per non parlare poi dei curatori capi e di tutti, insomma. Sembra fare un po' l'elenco come nei Ragazzi della Via Palle, in cui c'erano i generali, i luogotenenti, i direttori, insomma sono tutti qui, questo esercito di cervelli a Torino. Quello che volevo dire è che il brief che abbiamo dato loro a questa prestigiosa giuria è stato quello di esplorare ad Artissima quali artisti, che evidentemente sarebbero stati quelli premiati, mostrano una particolare complicità di intelligenza con le evoluzioni delle nuove tecnologie. Quindi non necessariamente artisti che operino tecnicamente con le nuove tecnologie, ma che abbiano mostrato una porosità proprio di intelligenza, di relazione con la direzione nelle quale molte nuove tecnologie digitali stanno andando. Quindi anche questo volevo ricordarlo, perché è un elemento secondo me prezioso da aggiungere a questo bouquet di riflessioni, di pensieri che oggi abbiamo la fortuna qui a Torino durante Artissima alle OGR di poter assistere e poter ascoltare tante voci preziose. Quindi grazie a tutti, grazie alla Fondazione, alle OGR, grazie a Ilaria Bonacossa, e lascio la parola al Segretario generale della Fondazione per l'Arte Moderna e Contemporanea Cerutti, Luigi Cerutti. Grazie.
Grazie Luigi. Allora, si sente? Ecco, adesso sì. Buongiorno a tutti. Innanzitutto, come diceva prima poco fa Luigi, i saluti sono importanti, non sono vuoti, perché danno un po' la dimensione delle progettualità. Noi come Fondazione per l'arte moderna e contemporanea Cerutti siamo un ente strumentale, quindi uno strumento un fattore abilitante per poter fare delle cose. Che cosa stiamo cercando di fare qui oggi? Innanzitutto il ringraziamento al Presidente Gianaria e all'OGR. Un simposio come questo, in generale un progetto arrivato al terzo volume, come questo poteva accadere soltanto qui alle OGR, luogo nel quale si cerca di porre le giuste domande e trovare le giuste risposte in questo momento di forte cambiamento in cui la tecnologia è diventata da fattore abilitante probabilmente anche qualcosa di più nelle nostre vite. Un ringraziamento ovviamente ad Artissima, nel suo direttore Luigi Fassi e tutto il team. Luigi lo racconta sempre, Artissima non è solo una piattaforma commerciale, ma è una piattaforma ormai intellettuale di pensiero, è in grado di muovere pensiero, in grado di produrre contenuti e progetti curatoriali e culturali, e quindi questa complessità che riesce a muovere la fiera arricchisce davvero il palinsesto della città e ci pone sulla mappa internazionale e globale ogni anno, e quindi per questo grazie, e grazie anche per il contributo che ha portato a questo nostro progetto. Ovviamente un ringraziamento a Ilaria, Bonacossa, che di Artissima è stata direttrice di questo e che cura questo progetto per noi, e quindi ovviamente grazie Ilaria per il continuo contributo lungo questi 3 anni. Sarai poi tu a dare ovviamente tutte le specifiche anche dell'appuntamento di domani in fiera, e quindi insomma non anticipo nulla. Termino dicendo una cosa: come Fondazione per l'arte moderna contemporanea CRT, io sono diventato onorato di essere stato designato segretario generale a fine di questo luglio. Nelle prime riunioni con il nuovo board ci siamo subito detti una cosa, che vorremmo caratterizzare il nostro servizio a questa istituzione su una parola molto chiara, che è quella di network. Cioè noi sostanzialmente proprio sulla scia di quella che è stata, di quello che hanno ispirato i nostri fondatori nel 2000 a creare la nostra fondazione, essere veramente un ente strumentale a servizio di idee, di progetti che la città è in grado di dispiegare nel corso del proprio anno, nel corso della propria vita. Questo ne è un esempio perfetto, perché mette, come dicevo prima, in relazione delle realtà che esistono, che sono realtà straordinarie come quella di OGR, come quelle di Artissima, che hanno un percorso lungo alle spalle. Quest'anno, credo tu l'abbia sentito molte volte, Artissima compie i suoi 30 anni, e quindi per noi poter sostenere economicamente, oltre che da un punto di vista anche di contributo intellettuale, iniziative come queste che sono in grado di produrre un gradiente culturale è qualcosa di fondamentale. Per non diventare un rottame muto, come diceva Guido Ceronetti, uno strumento che non suona, dobbiamo metterci in risonanza, e per farlo abbiamo bisogno degli altri attori della città. Poi ovviamente abbiamo sempre un occhio all'impact factor, che è fondamentale quando si compiono investimenti, e credo che giornate, mattinate come quelle che stiamo per vivere oggi, impatto nelle vite di ognuno di noi ce l'abbiano, perché ci portano a riflettere meglio, ci portano a conoscere di più e ad essere individui, credo, più responsabili. Luigi, mi ha fatto piacere, oltre alla tecnologia, oggi si parlerà anche di temi etici e di come la tecnologia idealmente dovrà essere applicata e si può meglio applicare nelle nostre vite, rispettando maggiormente l'inclusività e i grandi temi dell'etica umana, che in decenni come questi molto accelerati spesso a volte viene ridotta per interessi maggiori, e quindi da questo punto di vista credo che sarà un bellissimo appuntamento. Grazie ancora a tutti, e lascio credo la parola a Ilaria. Forse c'è un video che dobbiamo lanciare.
Esatto. Bravo. Sì. Lanciamo un video. Come anticipa Luigi Cerutti, lanciamo un video che ci mostra un po' un recap di quanto svolto fino ad ora e che ci ha portato ad oggi. Quindi possiamo lanciare il video.
L'arte come si rapporta al futuro e ai nuovi mondi? Per rispondere a questa domanda, Fondazione per l'arte moderna e contemporanea CRT e Artissima danno vita a Beyond Production, un dialogo progettuale alla ricerca delle tendenze ad alto impatto creativo, sociale e di mercato. Al centro del progetto una lettura dei nuovi mondi, che sia formativa ed educativa per i professionisti e il pubblico dell'arte. Nel 2021 Beyond Production lancia il progetto Surfing NFT, indagando un fenomeno da poco entrato nel dibattito contemporaneo. I non-fungible tokens vengono esplorati da 5 artisti e 5 gallerie che immaginano nuovi processi di mediazione con la blockchain e ne scoprono le opportunità. L'OGR Award, premio dedicato al progetto, proclama vincitore Demon Zucconi con l'opera Counting Frame, che evoca la storia del calcolo attraverso l'abaco, rivisto in versione digitale. Nel 2022 Beyond Production lancia Metamorphosis, progetto nato per riflettere sul metaverso, sulle potenzialità che offre e sui limiti che impone alla creatività. 4 artisti insieme alle loro gallerie hanno l'opportunità di immaginare, con la guida di sviluppatori esperti, l'alter ego digitale nel metaverso di una loro opera fisica. La giuria internazionale dell'OGR Award premia Rebeca Romero con la sua opera Semilla Sagrada. L'opera indaga con approccio archeologico i possibili legami tra sciamanesimo e mondo digitale. Semilla Sagrada entra a far parte della prestigiosa collezione della Fondazione per l'arte moderna e contemporanea CRT. L'opera è stata presentata nella sua versione fisica negli spazi di OGR Torino e continua a vivere nella dimensione virtuale del Duomo sulla piattaforma Special. La ricerca continua grazie al potere visionario dell'arte di anticipare il futuro. Nel 2023 Beyond Production giunge alla 3ª edizione e propone Symposium, una giornata di studi sul rapporto tra le nuove tecnologie, l'arte e la società. Artisti, imprenditori e tecnici si confrontano su come l'intelligenza artificiale influenza i processi creativi, sulle sfide e le opportunità delle nuove tecnologie per l'arte e sui temi di natura etica e legale legati all'arte digitale. I principali temi emersi nel corso del Symposium verranno raccontati in un dinamico dialogo con l'intelligenza artificiale. Anche in questo episodio Beyond Production cerca di rispondere criticamente alle principali domande del dibattito contemporaneo. L'AI è un alleato, un sostituto o un nemico?
Buongiorno a tutti. Il primo tavolo di questa giornata sarà in inglese, quindi chi preferisce ascoltarlo in italiano alzi una mano e gli verranno date le traduzioni simultanee. Invito a unirsi con me sul palco Luisa Ausenda, fondatrice di Studio Leggero e Clit Splash e curatrice di arte e new media, che ha lavorato con me a tutto il progetto, seguendone tutte le fasi. And I also invite to join me on stage Rebeca Romero, artist, winner of 2022 Metamorphosis Prize of OGR, even Franco Mattes, digital artist, who are also in the Metamorphosis Prize and who have been engaged from the beginning of net art when it was not even digital art, and Wolf Lieser, founder and curator, Digital Art Museum in Berlin. This panel, because of language issues, is in English, because obviously even Franco Mattes could do Italian, but we felt we would lose a lot of the conversation if the panel was in 2 languages. Quindi questo panel sarà in inglese perché ci spiaceva farlo in una lingua che 2 dei relatori non avrebbero capito. Quindi chi fa fatica a seguirlo in inglese può chiedere, ci sono le cuffie per la traduzione simultanea e così non perderete i dettagli di questa discussione. Allora, sarò molto veloce perché dobbiamo galoppare e recuperare i tempi. Il primo tavolo è su l'arte, era importante partire dall'arte perché è quello che ci sta più a cuore. Io dirigo per il Ministero il futuro, speriamo, Museo Nazionale dell'Arte Digitale e non sono una expert digital nerd, ma sono una curatrice d'arte che è sempre stata affascinata dalle sperimentazioni più nuove. E qua faccio un piccolo salto indietro, con OGR in effetti abbiamo fatto, ancora prima di Beyond Production, 2 progetti interessanti che erano Artissima Sound e Artissima Telephone, quindi andare a vedere come gli artisti toccano, e gli artisti lo fanno. Quello che credo sia importante è noi non partiamo dalla tecnologia, noi partiamo dall'arte, e quindi sono gli artisti che scelgono che tecnologia usare e perché, e a quel punto tutto l'establishment in qualche modo va dietro a questo interesse. I'm just saying that we always start from the artists and why they engage with some technology, and we don't start from the technology or the digital revolutions, but it's the artists who use technology who make these new products important. I was reading the other day, adesso passo all'inglese perché sennò diventa troppo lungo, that European politicians were claiming that AI is one of the major risks for the world at the moment. It is hard to believe, having 2 wars going on, that AI is the biggest risk. But for sure, we should start discussing issues linked with AI in a more cultural and ethical, broader framework, which is not just how to make more money with AI and how to use it for production issues, but to focus on a broader framework on how it can change our lives and how it can be used in a more intelligent way. So I won't talk a lot. I will pass the mic to Luisa Ausenda, who, as I said, has worked with me on all the project, who will introduce one by one our speakers and give them their voice, and then there will be some questions shared together.
Thank you very much, Ilaria, and thank you Fondazione Arte CRT, Artissima, OGR for inviting us today here. I think it's a wonderful opportunity also to hear from these 4 guests that we have on the stage. I have my phone in my hands, just so you know. I usually don't do talks with my phone in my hands because I am recording everything that we say so that later on this afternoon Alia, which is commonly known as the AI, but actually in particular it's an artificial entity that was created by Artificiale, one of our partners.
With Alchemy.
By Alchemy. This AI will be fed everything that we say today, because tomorrow in Artissima, at the fair, she will give a sort of restitution of what is being said today, both a recap and a restitution. So that's why I have my phone in my hand, I'm recording. And I wanted to first say that, you know, we have 3 artists. This is Rebeca Romero, that you know from the OGR Award. We have Eva and Franco Mattes, and we have Wolf Lieser, who's not an artist, but has been working with artists for many, many years and has believed in digital art since the beginning of the 90s. So I think, again, it's a wonderful opportunity to have, to put them in dialogue with each other. We're going to start today with Eva and Franco. Eva and Franco are an artist duo that is a pioneer of net art. They have been long based in the US, in New York in particular, and they work with very prestigious institutions such as SF MoMA, the Whitney Museum and the Walker Art Center, who also collect their work. They worked with the New Museum, with its digital platform Rhizome, that actually also restored the work by you. And they also curated shows, like at the Yerevan Biennial, and they have won grants and prizes such as the Italian Council Grant. They also exhibited their work in festivals such as Sonar, and in many important Italian institutions such as Triennale, Maxi, and more. Thank you for being here, Eva and Franco. I give the word to you, and then to Rebecca and to Wolf.
Okay. See if we can make this. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here so early in the morning. Thank you, Ilaria. Thank you very much. Thank you to Luigi, Fassi, and thank you, Luisa, for organizing this event. Thank you to Artissima and OGR for hosting us. Our call is our conversation this morning is called Start Laughing. One way to see AI is through the inversion process that it seems to have triggered. We start from the image to get to the source. The movement called post-internet, which began in the early 2000s, had already taken a big step in this direction. A group of artists acknowledged how social media were becoming predominant in the circulation of art, and photographs of works were circulating much more widely and quickly than the works themselves. Reacting to this observation, they addressed this new condition by producing works explicitly designed to optimize photographic distribution. This is a work by Katia Noviskova. To make an example, she used stock photos to create new sculptures that are incredibly photogenic. The documentation of an exhibition is hardly distinguishable from the stock photos the works are based on. One has to look at a photo of the back of the piece to be reassured this is not a digital collage, but an actual sculpture. In most extreme cases, the exhibition becomes a sort of photographic studio, not so much a place where the artworks are contemplated, but a place where images are produced and will circulate later on social media. The collective this, for example, transformed the gallery into an actual photographic studio, where the installation, the artists, the public all participate in the shootings, which in turn become the actual works. The exhibition becomes, therefore, a generator of images. Today, in this panorama, in which it seems images are more relevant than their reference, what seems interesting to us is that with AI, the step made by post-internet art, goes even further. An artist can generate infinite photographic version of a work, and then, at a later stage, create the work itself. It is a notable inversion of the normal cycle of production and documentation and consumption of art. We start from the photo, and then we create the original. One could almost say that the original is a derivative. The Czech philosopher Wilhelm Flusser wrote already in the 1990s how images are no longer content with registering reality. It is the image that now creates the event. In this sense, the computer is no longer the great calculator. It has become the great simulator. Maybe we should change its name. The importance of the data set, which every machine learning system is based on, is fundamental. Artists like Trevor Paglin, who also showed at OGR, Kate Crawford, for example, have worked extensively on this issue. That is how a generator of images carries within it the so-called biases of the sources, inheriting the prejudices and the worldview that is baked into the initial data set. These we're looking at are cats generated with a gun called StyleGAN, which has proven to be very advanced for the generation of human faces, a little less for the generation of cats. These images are from 2019. They are only 4 years old, but they seem prehistoric compared to the standards we're used today. Yet, the reason I'm interested in them is that they tell us something interesting about biases. It is clear from these images that the GAN was trained on a data set of cat images found on the internet, rather than the Feline Encyclopedia or the National Geographic archives. Evidently, on the internet, the quantity of photos of cats featuring a white text above and below the famous lolcat memes is such that an AI trained exclusively on cat photos online has included this characteristic white block text in any cat image. She is practically convinced that the white words are part of what a cat is. For this data set, they evidently used the archive from the stock photography agency Shutterstock To avoid having their images stolen, Shutterstock uses this watermark, these letters above the images. Since the AI was trained with stolen Shutterstock images, it concluded that cats always have Shutterstock written on them. And finally, in these generated cats, it is impossible not to see the resemblance with Grumpy Cat, perhaps the most famous cat on the internet. The same issues applies here. Evidently, the data set they use had so many images of Grumpy Cat that it influenced the perception of a cat to the extent that all the cats generated look like Grumpy Cat. Like, these are funny examples, but they reveal one of the major problems of machine learning. Namely, that the output, the final result, be it a text, an image, or a song, is based solely and exclusively on probabilistic calculations, on quantity of data, not quality. They are statistical renderings. In other words, if enough people are convinced that COVID does not exist, or that the US elections were rigged, or that the Earth is flat, and they voice their opinion loud enough, then the models based on the data set that collected this data will answer yes to the question whether the Earth is flat. This is why one of the problems that engineers are facing when creating data sets to train future AIs is avoiding content that was itself created with AI. So they're trying to train new models with data produced before the advent of AI, what they call fresh, real data, in the hope that will be less polluted, we could say.
Speaking of circulation of images, personal photograph is a network of cable trays that winds around and throughout the exhibition site. This one was installed at Fotomuseum Winterthur in Switzerland. At the two ends of the tray are two Raspberry Pi microcomputers, and all the photos we shot in a given month, for example, January 2012 or February 2019, are in constant circulation within the cables. The images are pulled from our personal archive of digital photographs of the past 20 years, but they are invisible. Images without viewers, yet always there, like most images nowadays. When designing the installation, I always think about the hours I spent watching the 3D Pipes classic hypnotic screensaver for Windows. Based on the same concept as personal photographs, Circuits is also a series of colored sculptures we've been working on for some time. Our personal interest in AI was born fairly recently when we perceived a radical change. Up to that moment, when two images were blended, like mixed, the result was a sort of mix of images, a bit like superimposing two photographs against a glass. Well, it's more complex than that, but you get the point. From a certain point onwards, however, AI began to understand space and perspective. So when two images merged, for example, that of a room and the chair would be positioned correctly within the given space. As artists, we are more interested in space rather than surface, so this change was very important for us. It also meant that AI is over, and it is all over, to quote Ito Steyr. In a similar way to what happened to the internet, sometimes in the early 2010, the internet crossed the screen. It started to be everywhere in our pockets, and therefore we stopped noticing its presence. This same thing is happening to AI right now. It's moving offline to become part of our daily life, to become inevitable. So we fed an AI with photos of our works and past exhibitions, and we got some interesting results, such as this one. We were trying to generate a sculpture within a gallery space for an exhibition we will have in February. And as you can see, AI stretched the sculpture, reaching the limits of the space. A door to the left and a wall to the right. Something that I personally would have never thought of. We don't know why it did it. I can only guess that in the data set, there were many images of similar shapes. For example, shelves or pipes that reach the two ends of any given space. This is a photo of an actual sculpture that is now on display here in Torino at the Geyser Library for the exhibition All These Fleeting Perfections, curated by Domenico Quaranta. This too was first generated, and in the same way as the previous image, the AI stretched it. So we built the sculpture to fill the whole vertical space between floor and ceiling. By mixing various sculptures and photos of previous exhibitions, such as the ones I just showed, we obtained images like these ones. So what we've been doing now is to choose one design among the many generated and try to build it, choosing materials, dimensions, and colors by interpreting the choices and mistakes of the AI. So we generate many photo versions of the work, and then at a later stage, we work backwards to create the original one. A bit like that joke we used to tell when we were kids. Do you want to hear a joke backwards? Start laughing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva and Franco, and we'll speak more about your work afterwards when we get to the questions. Rebeca. Hi, Rebeca. Rebeca was born in Peru, and she's based in London. She works with many different media, amongst them sculptures, ceramics, textile, sound, performance, and video. And she explores the concepts of diasporic identity, truth, fiction, and their relationship to the digital age. Often combining pre-Columbian iconography with advanced scanning and printing technologies, as we will see today. She works between the past and an alternate future, and on the storytelling potential of artifacts. She's interested in the collaboration between human and machine, representation, appropriation, and authorship. She received an MFA in Fine Arts from Goldsmith. She works with Copperfield, the gallery from London, and she was selected for Bloomberg New Contemporary Awards and received, as we know, the OGR Award last year. Thank you, Rebeca, for being with us.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. Thank you, Ilaria. Thank you, Luisa, for the invitation. I love the presentation, by the way. Thank you. All right, so today I've been invited here to talk about my relationship with AI and the way I use it in my work. I think I'll start by saying that the kind of AI that I engage with is the generative type, which is accessible to the general public through image and text generators such as Midjourney, DALL-E, Runway, and ChatGPT. These systems all use neural nets, mathematical abstractions inspired by structures found in biological brain tissue. My approach to art and AI is rooted in the work and research of Kay Alado McDowell, a writer, a speaker, and musician who established the Artist and Machine Intelligence program at Google AI. Kay has written several books in collaboration with ChatGPT, a text generator I'm sure you all have heard about. He's also the co-editor of the Atlas of Anomalous AI, a book that attempts to map our complex relationship to intelligence from ancient to emergent systems of knowledge. From an artistic point of view, Kay proposes a playful relationship with AI, not only using them to push the boundaries of what can be imagined and created, but going as far as wondering about the healing capabilities they could harness. A question is raised: What if we came up with a kind of AI that was able to heal? This proposal and this question strongly resonated with my work and my research. So as Luisa has said, in my practice, I often combine pre-Columbian iconography with advanced scanning and printing technologies. My works swing drastically between the past and an alternate future. Examining the storytelling potential of artifacts, I look into the intervention of the digital archive as a story-making technique, a world-building exercise that aims to bring to the forefront ancient belief systems that have been bleached out of history. Over the last couple of years, I've been working within the space where Amerindian cosmogonist and post-humanist futures intersect. In this context, integrating AI into this world-building process made a lot of sense to me. I engage playfully with AI generation, inviting it into my creative process. You could say we engage in a kind of conversation, sustaining what could be understood as a sort of dialogue. Together, we have imagined supernatural beings, magical artifacts, and future relics. The conversation is quite thorough and comes to an end after an intense process of wording, rewording, blending, selecting, and refining. The final result is then brought back into the working board and fits directly into the development of my sculptures, paintings, and 3D animation and video. My interest in ancient cultures expands from artifacts to rituals to magic. Oh, sorry, there should be a video there that didn't play. No? Okay, no video.
Sorry.
It's fine. Let me go back to my notes. So, my interest in ancient cultures expands from artifacts to rituals to magic. Coincidentally, comparisons to magic are common in the discussion of neural networks. It is acknowledged that they are more efficient than what seems reasonable, and we cannot really explain why. Some people said that the AI system experiences while developing an image can be compared to what we humans understand as experiencing an hallucination. Sometimes these hallucinations are quite revealing of biases that inhabit these systems, and often these revelations often become artworks in themselves, in my practice. Contemplating case inquiry about healing and incorporating it into my research leads me to formulate a new set of questions. Can speculation, myth, and magic help repair broken communities, remember forgotten ones? Can advanced technologies invoke mystical ideas and magical thinking? Could bringing back ancient beliefs into the present help us imagine futures soaked in magic? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Maybe the video is actually on the last slide of Rebecca's presentation, so maybe when as we speak to Wolf, you can recover it. Hi, Wolf. Wolf Lieser is the founder of the Digital Art Museum. With 30 years of experience, is one of the most veteran art professionals in the digital art world and in the digital art market. A visionary gallerist who saw the potential of digital art early on and supported the pioneers that we also call OGs, such as Friedrich Nacke, Manfred Mohr, Lynn Hirschman-Leeson, Jody, and Casey Reyes. His work is not only limited to representing artists, but also spans influential projects devoted to educating audiences and about the history of art and digital culture, such as the Digital Art Museum, which was conceived at the end of the 90s and launched at the beginning of the millennium. I'm happy to have you today, Wolf.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be back in Torino, which is a really fantastic city. And in the context of Artissima, and with all this program going on, It's wonderful. Just to make it clear, I mean, I started to get involved in the end of the 80s, but of course, Digital Art Museum, it's an online museum, which is now, of course, very fashionable, but at the time when I launched it, or developed the idea, it was in the 90s, that was a totally new thing. But of course, I didn't have the funds to really open a large building with all the things connected to it. So I came up with this idea. And it's online, it's still a resource, and we are building on it and continue to grow it and make more information available on the whole history of it. And then I'm located with a gallery in Berlin. So much for the background. Talking about background, I'm going a little bit back to the beginnings and to introduce some artists to you who are referring to AI, some of their statements, and then we come into present time, and then we are connecting again to the artist here on the panel as well. What you see here is an early piece from Frida Nake, who is one of the artists who started to work with generative art, meaning programming, in the 60s. His first show was in 65. He's turning 85 this year. So he's rather young, comparably. Some of them you mentioned are already. Vera Molnar is turning 100 in January. The statement which I'm reading to you from Frida Nake is recently, but it's a very clear position and to look at AI, I think. Whenever a person is connecting the brain to the computer, I personally feel insulted. Even so the person is not addressing me and has no interest in me at all, I get mad and aggressive, and I will never stop this kind of reaction. The computer is a machine. It is a thing. It has no life, just nothing of life. The brain is an important organic feature of animals, of humans in particular. It is immediately and totally related to life. If the body dies, the brain also vanishes. If the brain dies, the body will very soon die also. The machine, no life. The brain, only life. How can anyone in their good mind draw any connection between those two? Amongst all machines, computers are those that take up the mental operations of computing. Only that which in human life is characterized as being computable can be put onto a computing machine. To compute, it's a specific mental and therefore intelligent operation. But the entire range of computable functions is only part of intelligent functions. Only computable functions may become functions as a computer can carry out. Humans can carry out more. That sounds hopeful, right? Okay, maybe we can discuss the whole aspect. I'm going very deep into this topic. We can discuss that at the end a bit deeper. That was an interview which Mark America made with him in 2022. The first artist I know of that really imagined this idea of artificial intelligence and having this idea, like it's now very familiar, of an entity creating art based on the concepts and the parameters the artist had defined is, from my perspective, what I know is Harold Cohen. Harold Cohen was a painter before, an English painter, but he moved to the US and got involved with computers and started to program. And he had very early this idea. And he's in a book, an author who wrote a book about Harold Cohen. It's Marcia Con Crowden. It's actually, it was the early Sierra Nevada Museum of Art in 1979, where I'm quoting from, which was addressing already this idea of artificial intelligence. And it says, indeed, that is exactly how Harold Cohen has used computers as tools to assist in the discovery of his creative processes. Cohen has developed a program which enables a computer to generate drawings. It must be expressly stated that Cohen does not tell the computer what to draw. This is a little bit of a difference because many of the early pioneers had an aesthetic idea, put it into programming, and then it was executed. Basically the idea they had. Cohen envisioned right from the beginning a much wider range of variations based on his concepts. The computer generates original designs based on the complex set of rules and decision structure which reflect Cohen's understanding of the intellectual creative decision-making process, exercised by the human mind in making images. Cohen's program is a disciplined series of logical statements which define the options the artist faces as he draws images. And Cohen spent his whole life basically developing these kind of programs. When I met him, he lived near San Diego at the time, that was after 2000, that we met the first time in person. He said he's going down in the morning, checking what the AI he had developed has produced overnight. Then he was sorting out the things which were good or not good. And then he left again. And that's his vision was as well, that after his death, he would be able to have his AI keep working, even so he was already gone. Now coming a bit more into present time, another position is, and a very well-known artist in this field working with AI for a really long time and started one of the earliest pioneers with something what we call now machine learning, is Mario Klingemann. Oh, I'm sorry. With all this talking, this is Harold Cohen in the 80s. The difference is as well that he actually envisioned as well a three-dimensional aspect, which was not usual for the early pioneers at all. They worked on a 2D level. So, coming to Mario Klingemann. He was the first one, or one of the earliest ones, using Sketchmaker in 2006, which was a machine learning program, what we now call AI, which he developed as well, the software, but he already trained his model according to his parameters. I want to point out another aspect which I find discussable, which he developed. It's a project which he calls Botto. Botto is a project he created as an AI, totally independent. So it's basically an ongoing, complex program on the internet, which is regulated by the large amount of members. It produces regular artworks, and that's what you see here is one of the artworks. And then the community of all these people who are part of Botto, and you can become part yourself by just paying an amount, and then you would select as well the artworks which are appearing. Then these people decide which of the pieces are actually realized, meaning printed or minted as an NFT. So he created this idea of really separating it totally out of himself. He's not influencing that anymore. He says about it, all the votes from the community go back to the artificial intelligence, which tries to develop a sense of taste. So it looks at the fragments it creates and then tries to determine whether the audience will like it or will they hate it. So the actual decisions of the audience, a group, is influencing as well this AI unit in regards to what kind of art it develops. And the more information it gets from the community, the more sure it will be in its judgment. What it should do, what it should not do, almost like a child. Mario on SteelWorld.com in 2022. The last example is an artist I worked with for a really long time, since 20 years. It's Casey Reese, and he brings another aspect into the discussion, which I find very important and which I will continue to mention some other aspects to it after I introduced him. He works with something called GAN, Generative Adversarial Networks. It's basically two units which communicate with each other, complex programs, and which are developing the artwork. It could be a video or it could be pictures based on his decisions he makes aesthetically. and conceptually. GAN was developed by Ian Goodfellow and his colleagues in June 2014, so it's rather new. GAN isn't, I already mentioned Casey was one of the first ones using GAN, and the first exhibition I did with him in 2019 was really an early example of showing artists working with this kind of technology. And he says, I think of these emerging software systems as extensions of my own abilities, and I maintain complete authorship. My engagement is with the fundamental ideas and with the ability for the software to assist in creating pictures. The pictures are the complete focus. Ideally, they can be approached and interpreted outside of the orbit of any specific method of production. And that brings me to a kind of conclusion from my perspective in working with artists which are dealing with AI. I recently spoke to a friend of mine. She has an agency in the advertisement world, and she changed her agencies totally and only working with artists working with AI. And I spoke to her last week in preparation of this panel, and I said to her, what is the difference between these people you are working with and other people who just dab into it a little bit, who just try ChatGPT or Midjourney and whatever? I mean, we know it's rather easy to have an effectful picture, and it looks stunning, and for people who have never seen it think, oh, wonderful, that's what's happening there. And she says, the background, the vision, and I think that is, after all, the most important thing as well with the artist I work with, and I try to deal with, who are using any kind of form of AI in their practice. After all, you can create an exciting picture which is, people are really stunned about it, but if you don't have a vision, meaning a message or something to say, and I see that as well in your presentations, that's after all what is the most important, and that's why I'm not so much concerned about the effects AI will have. It will definitely change many fields like advertisement and music industry and so on, but in the art world, what really characterizes the art world is to step outside of the system. And that means as well AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
we still have some time for questions.
Yeah, 10 minutes, something like that.
If anybody has questions from the audience,
yeah, first we open to questions from the audience. No questions from the audience. Then maybe I can ask a question. There is a question. Yes, please.
Buongiorno, mi scuso per la voce ma ho un po' di raffreddore. Io purtroppo non parlo inglese, penso che ci sia una traduzione.
Va bene, se lei fa in italiano io semmai traduco in inglese.
Chiedo scusa. Chiedo se, io sto seguendo una linea che unisce l'intelligenza artificiale all'oculometria, quindi alle percezioni cerebrali e le neuroscienze. Su questo ci ha fatto modello Semir Zeki, quindi con le sue analisi dell'interpretazione delle immagini. Mi chiedevo, visto che il dibattito è molto complesso, se ci sono altre esperienze che a vostra conoscenza che legano, quello che è il concetto di percezione a quello di concetto di generazione delle immagini, perché è un punto che è molto, molto importante secondo me nella connessione anche del dare il senso a ciò che vediamo, no? Che poi è l'attività del nostro cervello. Grazie.
The question is, he's studying perception, neuroscience in relation to creating images, and if there's examples of studies or projects that link these two fields of studying neural data and the perception of data and the generation of images. anyone who has any answer to give it. I don't know anything specific.
I mean, I have not a specific example, but I know, you know CERN in Switzerland, I think?
CERN. Sì.
CERN, and you say?
We say CERN.
Yeah. I mean, they are continuously working and inviting artists to work with them on this kind of, and that is probably going in your direction. But I have no specific examples. Do you?
I do, actually. The person that I mentioned, Kay Alado McDowell, he worked in this opera that was, I think, created with AI, and they were studying the effects that music had in the brain of the listeners. And I think that there was also a case, or there's an interview when there is somebody that had a terrible illness, and the data shows that there is like some sort of improvement. I mean, it's just like the beginning of our research, but that's what comes to my mind. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I was going to ask something. Actually, I have a question for all of you. I don't know if we have enough time, but I'm going to start with Eva and Franco, because also to encompass your practice is quite hard, because you've done so much and so many different things. For instance, I'm just going to mention a few. You have plagiarized websites, appropriated identities such as the ones of the Vatican and Nike. You've created a sort of alter ego artist, a sort of Rose C'est la vie, Darko Maver, and then you went 100% public with the project Live Sharing, or shared other people's lives through their phone's camera roll, like in Riccardo Uncut. You've replicated in the, at the time it wasn't a metaverse, on Second Life, which is a sort of metaverse, historical performances such as Marina's and Ulai's. So anyways, this was just to give you an idea of their practices. What I was gonna ask you is, net art, you know, you're pioneers of this. It's not even like what do we call it? Una corrente artistica. It's not even. It's something that I think it's, and even Domenico Quaranta, who's here with us, mentioned this, is somehow undervalued from the historical traditional art world, in the sense that maybe, for instance, all these powerful, so to speak, hacks, to use an easy word that you've created in the internet, on the internet, since the beginning of the internet, and that were artistic actions as well. They weren't just hacks. Maybe you can mention a few to give us an idea. How do you relate to that nowadays, then, that the art world has finally given some attention to digital art, because if not, we wouldn't be doing an event like this one today. How do you, did you see any change in that sense? Was it better when less people were in the game than today? Or are you guys happy that this finally got, because your works have been collected, as I said, by SF MoMA, the Worker Art Center since the beginning. So you did receive attention as a pioneer net artist duo since the beginning. But what about today? What has changed? What is your perception on the audience knowledge towards net art?
That's a big one. First, I don't fully agree with the fact, like, basically it depends on the meters you use to judge in art production. Often in the media, the way, especially in popular media like TV and newspapers, etc., in the news, the way they judge the success of art is usually through price. There's this kind of overlapping, you know, that certain artwork reaches a higher price, especially in the auctions. That means that's important art. That's one way of seeing it, and it's, you know, it's okay. For me personally, my personal way of judging the success of art is through the influence of other artists. I feel like that to me is the best meter to judge whether an artist is a successful artist or not. To give you two extreme examples, like Picasso would be a perfect example of an incredibly successful artist on the market, in communication market. I mean, it's Picasso, come on. Marcel Duchamp is a great example of an artist whose market is ridiculously small. Like, he never really broke any record. almost gave away almost all of his works to his friends for like little money. He probably, you know, Damien Hirst probably sells more artworks in 1 week than Marcel Duchamp did in all his lifetime. Yet Marcel Duchamp is arguably the most influential artist of the 19th century. We cannot argue that. That's a fact. So for me, that's a successful artist. So net art, I think, had a huge influence on the next generation of artists. Whether or not they're aware of it, you know, some are less. That's not so. So I think it's great. The more, the merrier. The more people is involved. You want to add something, or?
Okay, you pretty much covered it.
Amazing, thank you. And Rebecca, I wanted to ask you something about, you know, being from Peru, from South America, working with pre-Columbian iconography. It's a responsibility. It's, yeah, I'm just gonna say, I believe that nowadays, even people who are not that, you know, related, and you don't have to be from South America to work, of course, with pre-Columbian iconography, but I was just gonna say that I believe that lately, it became somewhat, so to speak, in vogue to you know, like sort of like a deep dive into this iconography. And what you're doing is that not only you're bringing it to the present and even to the future, to an alternate future. What does this entail in terms of responsibilities, and how, you know, comfortable do you feel in speaking about representation through your contemporary voice, but about a representation that is actually in the past? So where is the preparation in this?
Okay. I think that, I mean, as you said, using this iconography, reappropriating it, transforming it, carries a big deal of responsibility, but also I have a practice that is pretty much anchored in fiction making, and thinking about how history itself can be considered fiction too. So I take myths, stories, artifacts from my cultural heritage, and then I use them as a base to then carry on with like a world building exercise. I guess that my attempt is to bring to the forefront stories, cultures, knowledges that have been somehow forgotten or overlooked. I don't know if that answers the question.
Wolf, I think you already sort of answered part of the question I had for you when you said that the difference between the artists that have been working with AI for a while and the ones that just adopted it today and use it just to create interesting images is that the former have always had a vision. But I was going to ask you, since you've been working with the former, with the OGs, with the pioneers from the very beginning, I believe that the scene was also very much different. Even these artists were less, and probably there was a dialogue between them, with you, with other professionals in the scene. And even though perhaps you were a sort of niche in the art world, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, what was the feeling? Were you feeling like you were at the forefront of, you know, at the avant-garde of art in terms of art history at that time? Or were you feeling a sort of like the underdogs that were discovering new, I don't know, I'm just...
Well, for a really long time I was an outsider. I mean, I started near Frankfurt, that was in the 90s, with a gallery and trying to sell this kind of stuff. And then, as I told you, I had a gallery with a partner in London, which we tried for 3 years, end of the 90s, and before I moved to Berlin. And even when I moved to Berlin in 2003, for a long time, I was an outsider. Basically, the established art world ignored me, which was fine as well. I mean, I built my own kind of collectors. I excited people. I must say, I was fascinated. I met the first artist in '87 who was dealing with digital art, and I was fascinated from the beginning. And I felt there was something going on, and that this medium opened aspects in the art world which were totally new and going in a very different direction. And if you look at all what's going on right now with AI and NFTs and metaverse and all these aspects which are influencing our culture, I feel it's true. I mean, this medium really affects this century drastically. And the artists who are dealing with it, like Franco Mattes, on a critical way as well, and looking at the different conceptual aspects of it, are very important because they allow us to get into this and understand it a little bit more. So in the last years, I really basically got that back, what I tried to plant over 15, 20 years. And now I'm really working with really very established collectors and museums and so on and so on. But for a long time, yeah, the only lonely, horrible. No, not that bad, but.
Thank you. I just want to finish in Italian e aggiungere, tirando le somme, ed è anche uno dei motivi per cui abbiamo questi relatori, l'obiettivo non era portarvi non so come dire, gli esperimenti più extra wow che si possono ottenere con l'AI o il digitale, ce ne sono molti. Ci sono addirittura ormai proprio degli studi che sono delle factory, perché per ottenere un certo tipo di installazione interattiva digitale hai bisogno di una mole anche economica che il singolo artista difficilmente riesce a fare. È interessante questa trasformazione dello studio in una factory, ma diciamo obbliga questi artisti spesso a avere prima i clienti corporate, per cui fare il grande video dell'apertura della Siemens World e poi usare i guadagni e la tecnologia per fare i loro lavori, ma degli artisti che in qualche modo, e questo è un po' il fil rouge di tutti questi 3 anni di Beyond Production, mettono un po' in discussione l'uso della tecnologia vedendone i glitch. Cioè è ovvio che la tecnologia ci sta trasformando, chi ha figli teenager ne vive le conseguenze nel peggior modo possibile, però è anche vero che gli artisti forse possono essere un po' quel campanello, quella capacità di usare la tecnologia in modo sbagliato, proprio per farci acquisire una consapevolezza. Sempre di più è importante che andando avanti questo mondo digitale che ci circonda, noi diventiamo dei cittadini digitali e non solo dei consumatori. E credo che il lavoro degli artisti, il lavoro di Wolf sia davvero importante per aiutarci in questo percorso. Grazie a tutti, ci rivediamo tra 15 minuti circa.